Erasmus. And my colleague Frauke Timmermans is also joining me here. We are working on the Culturen Campus Lighthouse project, and it's a real pleasure to do a short pitch on how we are approaching our territorial legacy through the Culturen Campus Putselaan. I was told this was a 3-4 minutes pitch, so I'm going to be also reading my text, if you don't mind, to make sure that I keep within the time. Culturen Campus is founded on a partnership of the municipality of Rotterdam and the city's higher education institutes, in particular those focused on the visual and performing arts, and the University of Rotterdam. We're also partnering with ELIA and ICLE and with 2 local partners, the Afrikaanse Wijk Coöperatie, which is a local cooperative owned by its members, and the Business Club, which is a social and enterprise business incubator. Together, we are working towards a new interdisciplinary and open campus for higher education and learning, for community and exchange, which will be located in the south of the city of Rotterdam. This is an area which represents many of the opportunities and challenges that face large urban areas and advanced economies, in particular questions of heat issues, of loss of biodiversity, skills gaps, but also very importantly, underutilized talent and creativity. So the campus, as we envisage it, is a space where the potential of the arts, culture and creativity to address societal challenges and city making can be fully explored. Our vision for long-term territorial transformation based on the values of beauty, inclusion and sustainability is deeply anchored, obviously, in the NEB vision. Today, I will talk about 2 ways in which we are securing our long-term legacy. The first is through the renovation of a heritage building as a hub of interdisciplinary learning and community based in Rotterdam South. And when I mean renovation, I mean we literally are renovating a heritage building in Rotterdam. You can see some pictures here in my slides of the renovation process. The renovation of the building and its garden has involved students, teachers, architects, municipal councillors, stakeholders, and together we have been not only facing the opportunities and challenges of bringing a heritage building up to the standards of sustainability and accessibility, but also thinking about how it can operate as an open and accessible space for learning and exchange within the community. The building opens in September, and the partners have committed to 7 years rental agreement. So in the spirit of our future legacy, we are committing to keeping this hub alive. Obviously, 7 years is long, but it's also short. So we are hoping that it will be a commitment for even longer term. It is a unique space insofar as it will house the municipality and the higher education institutes and offer an affordable space to local initiative in the fields of the arts, culture and sustainability. We will house some of our bachelor and master programs, as well as we are developing and have developed innovative education that is all open to non-students and residents as well. So the idea is that anyone could pop in and be inspired by our educational programs. We are in contact with our university student-led law clinic to provide support and advice to residents and to have a permanent base there, because through our experience in this project, we realize that often administrative problems come in the way of people taking initiatives and for example, developing entrepreneurship ideas or even improving their own well-being. So I will show you a little bit of pictures. This is the building that we will be occupying. These are some pictures of the renovation. And here you can also see from the beautiful windows also the garden outside. And this will be a space, a very large space on the top of the building where we will have open events and performances. There will also be a dance floor in this area. Based on the principles of the NEB, we aim to co-design a space and action as commons, so they're accessible, relatable, welcoming, and adaptive, combining diverse heritage values and contemporary and creative uses. We aim to engage with local sustainability challenges and opportunities, establishing trust, continuity in relationships, supporting local sustainability economy and social enterprises, and finally have a creative placemaking that simulates togetherness, learning, sharing, and transformative city making that does not, very important, exacerbate gentrification and inequalities. And here you have some examples of some of the activities that we've been hosting over the years outside of the building, as we couldn't host them inside. The second thing I wanted to talk about is that we're also securing our territorial legacy by mapping, interacting, and strengthening the ecological, cultural, and social ecosystem. Throughout the duration of our project, we have been connecting with local stakeholders and initiatives in the arts, environmental action, community well-being, working with various departments of the municipality and bridging knowledge gaps and domain fragmentation. The hub will function as a place where interdisciplinarity and domain crossing activities come to life. We're also working on an interactive dashboard that brings together diverse data sources in one accessible platform. We are collecting and mapping qualitative data through stories and local portraits. The feedback we are receiving is extremely positive, and we are making visible and supporting networks that have hitherto been more difficult to access or to get to know. Here are some examples of what our dashboard looks like. So we are overlaying various sources of information, for example, spaces of culture, but also heat maps of the city, areas of biodiversity, areas that are impacted by the climate, and also areas that suffer from issues with foundations in the building. And by overlaying these, we can also help people to connect to each other, to support and strengthen local advocacy and well-being. I think I'm done with my 3 minutes, maybe a little bit over time, but I just wanted also to conclude with an invitation to consider Kulturencampus Putsaland as your home as well. And we are very happy to host also your initiatives should you have the opportunity to come to Rotterdam and to share your best practices at our hub. We would definitely very much appreciate it, and it can enrich our own journey and experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Amanda. It's very, very good, very interesting. I think you should note down your questions so that we would take them all at the end. So therefore, I will ask Federico. I'm not sure if your colleague Mariana is attending, but otherwise, Federico, if you could present Bauhaus of the Sea, please.
Hello, everyone. Hi, also. I'm sorry, on behalf of Mariana, she sends her apologies, but she had another meeting at the university that she cannot get out of. So both of us, we discussed previously to this event, and I'll be presenting. And so I will share my screen. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So I'll give a kind of a more brief presentation of what the Bauhaus of the Sea Cells project is. Some of you already know this, but what is our main goal is also translated in this sentence: the sea is our land. So we have been promoting pilot projects across 7 locations in Europe that all have to do with the sea and the sea or bodies of water. And in those locations, we have managed to bring together 3 kinds of institutions, so scientific, cultural, and territorial. And of the 18 institutions that make our consortium, the cultural institutions and the creative profiles that have been involved in our pilot projects is really where the originality of our project shines through. And so we have followed this approach of the drop, ripple, and wave. So through small, local, participatory projects, we intend to, through replication and scalability, to understand what their long-term consequence can be. And this is something, of course, being the topic of our conversation, being what is kind of the medium to long-term impact of our work. This is the way the demonstrator pilots work. So we have a C forum, which is where we bring together three relevant figures: the ocean ambassadors, the speakers of the living, and the creative practitioners, so that we bring through an expert program. And these are the 8 typologies of which we call drops, of which then the pilot projects are defined by. So the first, which is kind of a common feature of all the projects, is this idea of the multi-species assembly. So the speaker for the living that I mentioned earlier, he or she represents the living non-human entities in this specific area, and through this ZOOP, which is a cooperative organizational principle that includes life, Zoe as being Greek for life, is defined as the way we work and the way we respect other other more than human entities in our impact zones. Of course, this is much more easily said than done, and right now we have pretty much implemented pretty much all the projects, and so it's already we're already able to have some conclusions of some of the very different typologies of projects that we're doing. For example, one is the Blue Makerspace that I will talk later about. Then ocean literacy, which is being developed in Lisbon, in Oeiras and in Malmö, that deals with how we defined narratives and exhibits in regards to bodies of water, being the river in Lisbon, in Oeiras in Lisbon, which is the Tagus River, and the Öresund Strait in Malmö. The inclusive digital storytelling that we've been developing in Genoa, and Blue Seniors that we've developed in Venice. So including the senior population of Venice and understanding how we can, through operations in the public space, but also with active listening attitude, can include the needs and desires of senior citizens in Venice, which is an overly depopulated city in Europe. Also include those needs and desires in student workshops and initiatives, namely from 2 universities, Ca' Foscari and UAV. And future tidal architectures is also an approach to 2 ecosystems, so the Rhine-Scheldt Delta between Belgium and the Netherlands, and the lagoon in Venice, which are both being affected by rising sea levels. Then Living with Water is this course that was developed with the guidance of post-humanist philosopher Rosi Braidotti, and that is held at the New Academy, which is part of the New Institute in Rotterdam. That's also then being applied through this water school, which is a project by the studio Makiken Bay, which are also based in the Netherlands. And this is the focus of our kind of proposal for kind of more long-term thinking, which is the regenerative menu. And this has been developed in Hamburg, Venice, and Lisbon. And the 3 pilots, the way they've been developing is, for example, in Hamburg, it's been connected through an exhibition that was called Survival in the 21st Century, that was organized at the Deichtorhallen in Hamburg, through which the designer Katinka Versendaal created a network of active agents in food systems connected to the river Elbe. So from fishermen to fishmonger to chefs, activists, designers, and understanding how you create a network that's now being developed as an open source resource that also can be replicated. And this is an idea of how we can approach, in this case, the fish as a resource in a non-extractive, but also actually regenerative way. In Venice, there's a few more also projects that connect with the other 2, so the Blue Seniors and the future tidal architectures, that also deal with underutilized or underappreciated species of fish and other species in the lagoon in Venice. And then in Lisbon, and I forgot I had a 1 slide per each pilot. So this is Katinka Versendaal and some of the people that she's been involved with. This is the menu in Venice with chefs and also really celebratory moments with children and senior citizens understanding the shared landscape and heritage of the lagoon. And then in Lisbon, we had this event 2 weeks ago on the Lisbon Spice Rack, where the artist Ren Wu and then designers Inês Neto Duchamp, Sabrina Salvador, which were the winners of a creative residency that was promoted by the City of Lisbon and the Gulbenkian Modern Art Center, developed this spice rack which has been applied in kind of more performative way in meals. So this was a dinner that was held in Lisbon, but also has, and this is perhaps the emphasis for our discussion, has emphasized collaboration. So also the menu was developed between an elementary school and is contributing to an existing library, some of whom visited that library last year, which is an underprivileged neighborhood in Lisbon. So understanding how we can create, and the city can create, a food hub through some of the approaches that, for example, these designers had to the landscape, namely the salt plains on the south side of the river Tagus, and through the use and an awareness of the landscape of how we can reimagine the way we eat. And so the collaborations here in these boxes are a deck of cards that can be used by children, but also this napkin is already a collaboration with a PhD student of a cohort we created and has been printed with all seaweed-based ink. And then another key collaboration is with the designers Jeremy Morris and Luca Carlisle that developed a new material from oyster shells, where Lisbon, or the Tagus River estuary, had one of the biggest oyster banks in Europe. It has since been depleted, but it's actually now coming back. And so they've been using oysters from another nearby river to create this new material, and for this collaboration then to be presented. You can see the shells already made in this material, and this will also be applied to the library. So their project will have its official presentation on the 26th of July. And then the emphasis is in the long-term thinking, and this is something we are very eager to develop after actually our project ends, is how we can turn the Marvilla Library into a real food hub, and how these small projects that were developed on the drop scale can be scaled up and can have a more deeper consequence, for example, in material development, in creating perhaps actually a value chain in material that has now only been seen as waste, but also in the case of the menu influencing the menu for school children in the city of Lisbon and overall. So this is for us the regenerative menu of the three cities, but especially in Lisbon, has this potential to be looked after for the foreseeable future. Just a final note.
We need to.
Yeah, I'm done.
Finalize.
Yeah. So just a final note for our final event, which takes place November 15. We'll be sending a save the date call by the end of the month. So thanks a lot. Sorry, I took a bit more than I should.
It's just we need to find time to talk together.
Sure, of course.
Thank you very much for this elaborated and very interesting presentation. Lucia, would you be kind to present a case from the Ice Hearts and Hand project?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. I will share my screen. Okay. And you should see the presentation in PowerPoint. Can you confirm? Yes. Okay, great. Thank you. So a couple of words of myself before. As some of you know, I am Lucia Miglietta and I am an architect. I have worked 5 years in the field of urban regeneration and landscape architecture. And here now is one of the projects which exactly gave me the possibility to practice my background in reality and in the vision I believe in. I'm working with Marina Focarile, that is the project coordinator of the EU project. And today I will present here with you. So EUR is the project which stands for Eyes, Hearts, Hands, Urban Revolutions, and it aims to test and develop a co-design process with the involvement of the European Bauhaus vision and the EU missions in three main pillars that are eyes, hearts, and hands. And as you probably know, the project started in 2022. It will finish in 2025, so we are approaching the end of the project. We are 28 partners and 8 countries are involved. And so, as I mentioned before, the three main elements of the acronym of EUR are also the three pillars on which EUR is built, and they are completely aligned with the NEB methodology that are eyes, which stands for aesthetically viable, earth, socially fair, and hands, sustainable and participatory. And EUR has applied the NEB methodology in 7 different lighthouses and cities across Europe, which have the ambition to implement the NEB vision in their different contexts. And the importance about this implementation is the fact that these cities have enhanced their local context. They have set the base for the foundation of a just transition. They are engaging municipalities and stakeholders, and they are establishing different financial models to support the sustainable development and transition. Today, I bring with you not a specific case, but more tangible results of the EUR methodology. That is the Decision Support System tool, the DSS tool. This is a tool that is a fundamental aspect of the project because it allows us to give a possibility and an opportunity for the decision-making process. We tested this tool during the last General Assembly with our partners, and we are collecting feedbacks and comments for the implementation, the continuous implementation of the tool. It enables all the European cities to plan the best strategy for the decarbonization and the transition, the green transition, fulfilling beauty, sustainability, and togetherness strictly related to the NEB approach. And the DSS tool is designed for offering a clear understanding and suggestion on how to tailor specific solutions for each local context. And as you can see from this screen, it is a web-based application where the results are based on the experience of the 7 lighthouses that are the cities and the experience of the EUR project. So let's go a bit in detail in the tool. The DSS tool workflow is based on 3 main moments that are the user's information insertion, which every city have to insert their specific information about the context. Then a decision support tool database in which the information are collected, and then the interrogation of the tool is based on the internal database, and then the roadmap definition for reaching the different solution for the decarbonization target, considering the NEB values. So, as I mentioned, people will have to answer to specific key questions in this tool. They will answer in this cert information regarding, for example, the municipality level or the district level, as you can see. Then they will have to calculate. It means that they will have to run the tool based on the internal database, and the databases contain valuable data and insights that are collected from the experience of the 7 lighthouses of EUR that are involved in the project. So the tool analyzes all the information to identify a sort of benchmark and the best practice that can be relevant for the potential solutions and cities. And then the results are presented. The results are based on the definition of different suggestions, solutions, and measures that can be a valuable intervention for each specific city. And these suggestions, of course, are designed based and taking into consideration all the NEB values, the European Bauhaus values. And the solutions are proposed thanks to this kind of spider graph and to technical solutions. Sorry, the previous one, to technical solution. And the spider graph are sort of forecast graphs that allows you to see where you could reach and where would you be with your nebbishness if you will implement all the proposed solutions based on the lighthouse affinity and example. And so, of course, I kindly ask you to spread the word and to talk about the DSS tool, because we think it's a very important tool and it can give a lot of benefits to the municipalities. And coming to the end of the presentation, it is clear that, of course, in EU, citizens are the forefront of the urban revolutions, and they are the main actors that we have to take into consideration. And so I conclude my quick presentation with a key question from the NEB vision, that is, why do we need the new European Bauhaus? Because we need to bring the green transition closer to citizens, and the change cannot happen without awareness. And I truly believe that empowering people and giving them the possibility to understand the importance of the green transition is the foundation for tackling and reaching the major challenges we are facing today. So that's it, and thanks for your attention.
Thank you so much, Lucia. It's very, very nice to also have an impression of a specific tool that can be used across this case. I will now do very briefly a presentation of one case from Desire, and then we can start talking together. So once again, I will share my screen. Yeah, and then I'll just make it into. So here we have 8 lighthouse demonstrators, and I could have said something about each of them because they're very different, and so you can find inspirational stories from each of them at our website. So of course I'll invite you to dive into these stories, these narratives that give you an impression of what has been going on in each of these 8 lighthouse demonstrators. I just grab one of them, and this time I take Gadehavegård. It could be also one of the others. But Gadehavegård is the social housing area in Høje Taastrup. It's a municipality located west of Copenhagen in Denmark. And there they wanted to use Desire as a project to test and demonstrate how they could transform a green area next to these social housing blocks. And they chose to collaborate with a local school and to do a 2-week theme workshop where they engaged these young people in 8th grade. You see 3 of them here. And they also engaged an architectural company that was working together with them on sort of setting up, actually 2 architectural companies that were working with them both on how do we design, how do we work with design principles and design methods when we want to transform a specific area in our neighborhood, and how can we turn our ideas into something that can be built later on. And these young people were divided into smaller groups, and they were sort of defined as a specific theme with a name. And each of them developed by drawing and building, prototyping, also learning about biodiversity, for instance. They were going into the area and learning about what are key elements if you want a green area area to become true biodiverse. So these elements were included. Also, the principle of circularity was used in defining or in their work on how they would like this green area to look like. And out of it came a catalog with different relatively wild ideas. You just have one of them here. And of course, this was not something that these young people, these young kids were drawing themselves, but they were having the ideas and they were building them on a very small scale. And then by the interaction with the architectural companies and with the housing company that was involved in this specific area also, they came up with these beautiful renderings and visualizations. And for those kids, actually, for them, it was, first of all, it was about learning to access their local area from a different point of view, not just living there, but actually taking or being engaged and feeling responsible and empowerment towards what is going to happen. Because, of course, this example of a building that could be placed in this green area, or something that they would like to see in this green area, may not happen. But for the housing association that was involved in this specific case, it was also a question of democratizing and learning these young people that if you have wild ideas, they may not come true, but it's important to have them to at least proceed, at least to go a bit forward. You may not be able to really reach what you aim at with your wild ideas, but you can go at least a part of the track. So out of it came a toolkit for co-design with kids, which were developed by the architectural company GXN. And what they learned from this experience is that young generations bring a mix of perspectives, unconstrained imagination, and willingness to embrace experimentation to the task of urban design. They simply said that they would not be able to have this kind of wild ideas themselves. They were really feeding from this initiative together with the young kids. And for Dumea, who is the housing association involved in actually transforming the green area, this was an important learning point for them, that they should involve, first of all, architects much sooner in the process, but also to involve the young kids, not just for having these great ideas, but also in how do we implement the great ideas in practice later on? What are the constraints? What are the opportunities? Where are the potentials? And also to make them learn that it's not just an easy ride. It takes courage, and it takes also stamina to really come through. So this was just very briefly an example from Desire. And I mentioned you would have other examples as well to share. Okay. First of all, are there any questions to these 4 presentations? Please raise your hands. The idea is now that we first of all do questions that have a clarification purpose, but then we will split you up into smaller breakout rooms so that you can have the possibility to talk and share reflections. And the aim of this exercise is really to see how can we, what is relevant and interesting to take forward when we're looking into the future, which comes next. But first of all, any questions regarding clarifications or things you would like to ask for each of these 4, myself included, presenters? Yes, Frederica, I think you were the first, please.
Perhaps I'll let Jenny go first, but since I'm one of the projects, my question was to you, Åsa. I was very interested in how in the project the teenagers were, how they were able in tangible ways, how do they engage with the territory, and how do they engage in designing or having ideas of the future, and if one of the outcomes, which can be more explicit or less explicit, is that they become designers and architects themselves. So they become, and they have an interest in the discipline. So this of course, me being a designer and design curator and writer, so I'm also interested in that specific outcome.
Yeah, it was, first of all, they were working together with biologists and landscape architects from one architectural company that were taking them into the nature to understand what is biodiversity and what does it include, and what are the different species, and in order to prepare them for imagining what they could do with this green area. So they were not looking at the area that was going to be transformed, but went into the nature to be inspired, to have this input. And then they were designing together with architects and designers. So it was actually the method that designers and architects are using. So these architects and designers were running the workshop at the local school. It was not the school teachers, the normal school teachers who did that. They were facilitated by the architects and designers. And they were also using their software programs. So it was possible for the kids to see, whoa, my sort of very primitive drawing sort of could be transformed into something very beautiful and very fantastic. And that gave a boost to their sort of confidence in themselves. And actually, after this project, these workshops had been done, 3 of these young kids, I'm not sure if it was those you just saw on the picture, but 3 of the young kids that were involved in the activities were invited to do an internship for 2 weeks at one of the architectural firms that were included, because they got so fascinated by how you work with design principles and transformations like this. They wanted to learn more. So for the GXN, I think it was the company involved there, they also saw it as an opportunity to create, improve, and raise interest for architecture and design, and how we need architecture and design disciplines for transforming our societies in the future. So it had a lot of positive spin-offs, you could say.
Wonderful, thank you.
Jenny, you had a question, but
yeah, no, my question was actually very similar to Frederico's, even though I was on Desire with you. What I was really curious about is how the process of tapping into young people's creativity and connecting them to professionals to enhance what their expressions of creativity would be could be expanded into lots of other different professional areas. Just thinking about it going forwards is, you know, because I didn't work on that one of the 8 projects, I'm just curious how that might be adapted in, say, something like Bauhaus of the Seas in a different context. So what would it be like to connect young people to perhaps marine biologists and marine engineers? You know, I wonder how far you could extend that idea of young people's imagination connected to professional iteration of that. That probably makes no sense, but that's what I was curious about, thinking about.
What do you think, Frederica?
I think it makes total sense, and it's a very important question, because I think a common feature of our project is the idea of participation, which is more or less well achieved. And that also deals with how institutions work, how we get people actually involved. But also, I think, from a disciplinary point of view, is if the European Bauhaus is in the end about sustainability, aesthetics, and inclusion through, I would argue, the design disciplines, plural, in many, as there are many, how do we make citizens aware of what these disciplines are, what they do, and how can they not only be accountable for their actions, in the sense of we as citizens want to have a say in what is being built around us, but also we understand that, you know, having informed decisions and having the design process including participation, not as a nuisance or something that we need to do because, people in Parliament ask us to do it, but there's actually something that adds to the process. And that for that, the practices themselves need to change or evolve. I like the word evolve better than change in this regard. As to your question specific to Bauhaus of the Seas, Jenny, I think it's also very important that through interdisciplinary processes that, again, citizens understand what these different activities are, and also be the champions of these projects, that say, I'm involved and I will defend this, and I want this to be part of, my neighborhood for a very long time. And it's almost one of these things. We don't want to go back to, the conventional way of doing, which is like city planners or city officials, they dream up something and then the bulldozers come in and people are not involved. This is not the way we want to do work anymore. So I think it's a great responsibility that we also have within our hands. So yeah.
Thank you. Jenny, you put down your hand, so I suppose you don't want to add more.
You know me, I could always add more. Yeah, I mean, the next place that I was thinking about across all of the projects that we just heard from, and also the in the NEB in general, is one of the things as an organization we have been experimenting with a lot in the last couple of years is embodiment of practice, how to weave in embody the experience of knowledge, and how that has a much more rapid impact on how change is taken on board by people. Yeah, I'm just curious about that. We are seeing in our work, even with small embodiment practices and exercises, tiny weeny ones, how much faster mindset shift is happening. And I kind of heard that thread across all the projects here. And if I could dive into the EU pot of budget, it would be really interesting to just analyze that across all of the first wave of NEB projects. But I'm going to stop talking now because that's outside the scope of this conversation.
Thank you, Jenny, for your input, Phil. And thank you for Jens for sharing that you engaged children in your Interreg Baltic Sea Region project. There's a link in the chat, but there might be some problems with opening it. However, perhaps this would be something that you can exchange upon in the breakout rooms that we are opening now. Unless you want to share something very briefly, of course, it's to you.
No, it's just listening to the youth engagement. We really went through it for 2 years, and we were actually basing it on that it is in Hamburg, for example, where I'm based, mandatory to engage young citizens in urban planning and transformation since 2006, with nobody knowing how to do it. And so we engaged the cultural institutions to be facilitators. And that was the breakthrough for us. It was not about the municipalities meeting with the kids, but it was the cultural institutions being facilitators in the process with our guidance. And that was the biggest learning that we had.
Thank you. That seems to be something to look into there, definitely. Now I will open the breakout rooms in a very short moment. I just want to, for those who haven't, were not used to this, just to give you an introduction. There will be 15 minutes. We're a bit late, so perhaps we will stop as soon. But 15 minutes is what I expect you to have, and then this should be the occasion to reflect upon what you have heard and what inspired you, if you have similar experiences from other projects, where you see the greatest potential for the future. And then I would just ask you to avoid doing a traditional presentation round. because that would take so much. And thank you, Jenny, for learning me that. Just dive into the topic instead of introducing yourself, because it's much more interesting when we look into the topic that we're talking about. So, okay, I'll just stop sharing my screen, and then I will move you into breakout rooms, and it will be done automatically, and you will also re-enter this room automatically. And in some cases it doesn't work, and then you will have to stick with me, because we will then make a small group of ourselves. But let's see how it works. Now I want to start. Okay. Okay. Should be happening. Oh, what's happening? Sorry. Okay. Yeah. Okay. There we go. The breakout rooms open now. Hello, Alessandro. It's unfortunately you're the one that I couldn't add to a. You're muted.
So maybe we can have a conversation.
Yeah,
you and I.
That would be great.
Okay, thank you so much in the meantime. Ambra Trotto told me that this was finally there was a day in which we could have a presentation of different things, so to have a look into the different not just experience but also the priorities that you've got, that you somehow feel you've got in it. And I was quite I had plenty of thoughts around that. I'm from Fondazione Fitzcarraldo, by the way, so you probably don't know. You don't know anything about me, but sorry, just to introduce me shortly. I'm from Fondazione Fitzcarraldo, okay, which is the foundation based in Italy, and we work a lot around culture-based local development, and I'm particularly into policy development for cultural democracy and participation. So this is where I come from. I'm working around sustainability also. So I was particularly interested in I found very interesting the embodiment part that was mentioned at the end, because this is something that we practice in Sears and in some of our projects, of the projects we are collaborating with, so as partners in cooperation projects. And the point of embodiment, which is also how to transform what in your project is all based on participation, but the key step is that participation becomes actually agency, which is much more than participation. So that kind of engagement, and there are plenty of experiences across Europe of all kind, especially coming from the artistic sector, that are really working specifically on that, not design or architecture related, so not necessarily part of the experiences you went through, of all experiences. So I think that this is a great point to, let's say, dive deeper into. I had no clue. I found very interesting what Federico was mentioning about how to scale up the drops that worked, their drops in that case, because the point is that I always find very interesting, but I also often struggle with the good practices because they don't teach you anything. Basically, it's bad practices teaching something. So it would be really, really important to understand where things didn't go well, why. Because there is the learning much more than the best practices, because we are full of best practices. So, but not to say, we failed or so, or let's celebrate the fail, but which are the learning we can get from that. Also, because in some cases, I mean, there is two things: how to work on the on weaknesses or failures, let's say, that are somehow able to teach something, to generalize this, what can be generalized after all that, And on the other hand, it brings up the idea of sustainability. So which of these things are financial sustainability? So not just social and environmental, but also financial sustainability. What makes these things viable and become actual, not just formats or experiences, but businesses, or business model for existing organizations, or revenue streams for others that could in the end make this viable besides public funding. This is another key point, which is completely overseen. So the sustainability model of anything was mentioning, and any of the experiences was mentioning this aspect, which is crucial if we want to make it systemic. So how to scale this into systemic pattern, including, let's say, local regulation systems, local policies, and business. So the two sides of policies and business models.
But how do you think?
That's all. And that
Yeah, but how do you think? How do you think that the systemic approach or way of thinking align with learning from failure? Because I mean, sometimes you have the systemic institution. You have, for example, the financial institutions, and if you fail there, it's not good. And but also what we learned in design is that you have to be ready to fail, otherwise you're not really ready to experiment, and you have to also accept that you fail sometimes. But the system doesn't necessarily accept failure in the sense that it's more built upon success.
We should reframe it, or we could reframe it. How might we, let's say, make so that there is room for failure in each of these things, so that we've got, let's say, we are safe enough with experimentation, so that we know that something will fail, but we already got something, a lot on we can build upon, because I mean, all the NEB work in these years has been amazing and great. I mean, you've done already so many things, formats, tools, approaches, things that worked, other worked less. We also saw that let's say that eyes, heart, hands approach, that is the decision support system that is already trying to systematize a little bit, let's say, the tools and how to use them. But still, I mean, we should build framework into which failure is allowed and welcome within a given space, and what survives the failure, so what can't be arranged, changed, developed, or what worked since the beginning, should be scaled into sustainable option, so that it stays besides European funds or
exactly. I just want to introduce Renata. Are you with us? Do you hear? Are you interested in taking part in the conversation?
Probably she's not there.
No, probably not. Okay. So and otherwise, then, would you please elaborate a bit on what you mean about embodiment, that also that Jenny referred to? That would be interesting for me.
In the art sector, for example, dance is fully, let's say, we've been working a lot around soft skills of dancers, and which are the specific features that make the action of experiencing through your body and not just through your mind or intellect change processes of any kind. And now this becomes a much deeper learning. So actually you embed it in a way, so that what I don't remember the name of a colleague, but she was mentioning how faster change happened in their minds when they were embodying them. Just to, and this brings me back to the agency thing. I work a lot, for example, with
I've been kicked out of my room.
Oh,
I kick you. Sorry, Alessandra. Which room was you in? Do you know that?
I was with Jens.
Okay. Yes, good. I'll just kick you in, or sorry, I'll just move you back. I don't know what happened. It's room 2. Why isn't it so? Can't do it now. Sorry. So, yeah, you should go. Sorry.
No problem.
Should happen now. No?
Yeah, it will happen.
Okay, good. So, sorry,
And
Alessandra.
so,
Yeah.
no, I was trying also to elaborate around that. So how to shift that to other, for example, we have been working a lot with TENS and Parkinson's disease, and then mixing up people of all kind. But what happens is that if you work with your body and you find the way to work with your body, include your body into the learning, you gain extraordinary, not just deep understanding, but also agency. You own basically what you in a way that is not so. For example, working with choreographers or dancers also that are practicing those things, so including movement into design, we realize it's extremely powerful, and for example, there are several dance networks or circus networks working around that, and they I think would be, let's say, key players into this, also understanding which are the specific dynamics that are activated within this process thanks to these kind of processes, and how they boost basically understanding and connection with the living environment, with other human beings, and how they increase the self, not just self-awareness, but your agency. So you can, in a way,
Yeah.
because this is also brings to the citizens are the main actors. The point is that participation can be done in many different degrees. Let's say the lowest is tokenism, but especially working with artists for many years, I saw there where you can really, I don't know how to articulate it, but you can see the difference. If it's an exchange, it works. So if which is the thing that Federico was mentioning at the end. So it's not we for them, poor things, but it's really if they are teaching you something, this, and you're teaching them, they are teaching you, and in a way you feel both your interdependence. This makes you much better designer, but this also makes them much more aware that they've got the power to change something, and that's the agency point.
Yeah. I think it's very interesting what you said about making movement into design. Because how can we use our body? I really like this perspective of how to use our body, our sort of senses more, not just our brains, because we have become so much focused on our brains. Do you know this method called systemic constellation?
No.
No, it's really about also working with system, but using your body to position yourself in relation to others, and you can represent yourself, but you can also represent an institution. You can represent a feeling, or you can represent a wish or something else, and then you have a facilitator that work with a group of people, and they position themselves in relation to the others, and this systemic where you have the relationship and you have your body as your tool to set up new constellations it's really strong. I tried it once, and
It
I
comes
think that
from the arts. In the theater setting, there are also there are some artists working in incredibly powerful way, like Storm, for example, that is based on movement, based on the very basic minimum theatrical exercise in the first place, which is moving in the space and moving relating to others, but in a way that it's not necessarily guided. And they developed this long-term research that brings people to act as a flock. So in the end, what emerges is the collective intelligence that And so something that it's beyond you, but it's about all of you and this museum. Yeah, this is another very powerful.
Just like birds in flocks. It's difficult to
yeah,
know
I will
why.
check out this systemic constellation approach. So it's very nice. Thank you.
It's a very interesting approach. I would love to be able to do it, because I tried it once and it was such a strong, both being part of it, but also seeing what it did to improve our understanding of how different elements interact and how we can work with a different understanding of how we or different elements interact, and can be also a way towards a solution or a way forward to doing something differently. So I really
interdependence also. It's very that if you move something, all the rest should move. So in a way, how to reconfigure is about interdependence and how strongly you can perceive interdependence this way.
Exactly. It's about interdependency. Yeah. So okay. So what do you think? You know European Bauhaus well, I assume. So
yeah, pretty. I mean, only I wasn't part of any project of these lighthouses, for example, but I follow it since the beginning, because of course the topics it revolves around are kind of key of our work.
Okay.
Somehow,
so that was yeah. Thank you, Alison. Thank you all. I hope you had some great conversations. So if anyone wants to share briefly, we can do it for 2 minutes, because then we have to have a break before we proceed. Please just speak up.
I can just share something from, I had a conversation with Gustav, who is an architect, and we were discussing in connection to what Lucia shared, like new models for kind of measuring from a more systemic perspective. And they are also developing one such model and software for the cities, and the kind of like, how do you build in more environmentally sustainable ways? And then I said it would be interesting to transfer that model in connection to social sustainability, which I work with a lot in the cities. So it's just interesting to see how we can plug into each other's projects, and on a higher level use them in different contexts. Because I think that can create quite big ripple effects in a way. Yeah, if we could.
Yeah,
that.
Perfect. A good point. Other sharings, reflections to be shared?
Well, basically, Amanda and Oya and I, we talked about young citizen engagement and the perspective of one being what is in it for them. So many young citizens being disappointed that they are used as almost workshop bait and never being entitled afterwards. So talking about participatory budgets, but also, as I mentioned before, engaging cultural institutions as facilitators, because they are hooked into school programs, afternoon programs, and we also briefly, and that's a run out of time, touched on the ethics about engaging young citizens, but that would lead too far now as a summary. Amanda, I think that's our summary, right?
Perfect. Okay. Thank you, Jens, for sharing. Annemie, please, before we have a break, this may be the last comment.
Yes, sure. Just very, very briefly, we talked about how all of these things now, well, in these projects, it seems like really a new normal for the projects at least. So how do we really make this new European Bauhaus and the new normal? So to integrate it into institutions without institutionalizing it, of course. So to make sure that it doesn't disappear after the project, and then to really make sure then that this co-design process is always at the forefront. So yes, a lot of people need physical changes in order to make it more tangible, but then to make sure that the goal always is this co-design process, and using this diversity of people as a strength For example, Amy also had a comment then that, well, it's really good that young people are being included. We should, of course, then make sure that it's not, oh, we included young people, check box, but seeing again, it's not a monolith. There's a lot of diversity in each group as well. So how do we do these processes? We've done it now for 3 years. So in the next 5 years, for example, how do we go deeper into exploring what that actually means? Working together or co-designing, co-managing, co-anything, and to create even more knowledge then that can be shared with others that perhaps haven't had the privilege of having a NEB Lighthouse project, but still would like to do these types of activities. So how do we share knowledge in order to get more people to do even more, even deeper, very local, very concrete?
Thank you, Annemie. I think this was a very good way to have a break. That's something to reflect on. We're running a bit behind, but I will give you 7 minutes break so that we re-enter this room at 20 minutes past. And then thank you for joining, Juan Carlos and Selene. As you understood, we're a bit running behind, but yeah, not to take any more time of your break. See you in 6-7 minutes. Okay, so let's get started without further ado and restart because we have also now 2 more included in this meeting. This one is Solène Coutron from the Joint Research Center, and Solène will be presenting some of the more overall, or you could say meta-level perspectives on the European Bauhaus Lighthouses. And also we have Juan Carlos Espada Suarez. I'm not sure, sorry, Juan Carlos, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. My Spanish is not very good, really non-existent.
You did perfectly well, Jose.
Okay, thank you. And you're also joining us. You're from CINEA, so from the Agency on Climate, and something we're working with many of these projects. But I think I'll just give the floor to you, Solène, who has promised to share a more meta-level perspectives on these European Bauhaus lighthouses. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you for putting all the effort into organizing this session, and it's great to see so many of you this afternoon. On my side, on the side of the NEB coordination team at the Commission, I just wanted to pass, let's say, a few messages on the lighthouses and where they are now. You know that you are this first generation of projects, the first example of what can be the scope and the application and the impact of the new European Bauhaus approach. Projects that really exemplify what the NEB can do in terms of generating long-term lasting changes. And you've already inspired other projects. I talked recently to a French representative of a French region, who said that an encounter at the past festival and a conversation with some of you had inspired them to replicate some of your actions. So it's those things, the way you've been part of the NEB community for the past 2 years have been already fundamental, and you are our main ambassador of the project at that point. So now that you enter in a different chapter of your work, 2 things are very important for us. First is that all your learnings, all the solutions you found to the challenges you've encountered are passed on to a next generation of project. And this is already very well on the way. That's why you have sessions like this one today. And again, I want to express the gratitude you have to this proactive way in which you said we want to have a common set of learnings and already pass on the baton. And the second one is that as much as possible, we can ensure that the communities you served and the neighborhood that you've already helped change for the better continue to receive your help. And on both of these hopes, of these ambitions, we are trying to find solutions, including with the European Institute for Innovation and Technology and their Culture and Creative KIC. We are working with the ITCC KIC to help them, so that they help you, transition towards whatever the next step will look like for the different project, and make sure that all the relationship you've built, the connections and the learnings are built upon and live on. So this is where we've placed our expectation in the ITCC KIC. And it's also very important to say that now for a while you've been creating this group of 6 projects with strong interconnections and relationships. It's also important for us that, you've always been part of the NEB community, but now more than ever, it is about also really embedding you even further in this wider ecosystem that can hopefully benefit from your experience. And for example, you know that we have the NEB Festival in 2026. This is also a place where we hope and expect to see still our lighthouse demonstrators in their next phase. And that is a little bit the message that I wanted to pass. So a lot of wish and expectations and support for your next phase, and we'll be still meeting quite a lot this year. Juan Carlos,
Thank you.
Maybe.
Thank you so much, Solène. Do you want to add something, Juan Carlos, or should we open the floor for questions?
Yeah, thank you, thank you, Solène. Just to second what Solène has mentioned, introduced, and particularly thank you also for organizing this event. ICL, the Irresistible Cities Lab, to be the first legacy result of the first NEB Lighthouse projects after reaching the end of actual implementation of the project. So it's a livable example of continuation of what has been done and said during the last 2 years, and hopefully longer, and also for the rest of the project joined together. Also, this initiative that you decided to start working together jointly last November in Lisbon, to bring together, to put together all the different impacts, or the partial impacts of the whole NEB intention, the NEB initiative, and you have made a strong effort during the last months since we met in Brussels to come up with this ambition, a joint impact narrative, joint impact outcome that reflects actually the partial impact of all the on-ground activities, which has been incredibly important, and putting all together to show what was discussed in Lisbon last year, which is to showcase and to give visibility to the value of NEB, the value of the NEB principles, and how this actually can take ground, and how can this really bring benefit to the cities and to the population of the neighborhood, and can actually transform, be a driver for transformation of the EU cities neighborhood. So this will hopefully take the final format, or is going to be delivered. No, this was the ambition. Next September in Rotterdam, in the next cluster meeting, hosted by Culture Campus. So Amanda is here representing the project. Thank you very much for pulling forward the preparation of the cluster meeting. I think it's going to be a very important milestone to really present and transfer all this effort, and all that is not only for this month, but for the last 2 years, and this year actually 2025 with NEB Rely 2025, which is an important also effort developed by all of you. So yeah, so thank you very much. Looking forward the evolution and also any question that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Juan Carlos. And of course, I will open the floor to questions and comments. So there's one in the chat from Jenny. But before, just if you haven't been involved in a lighthouse project, there has been meetings regularly between the 6 lighthouse projects, the first 6 lighthouse projects. So these are the ones that you're referring to. Juan Carlos, one in March, and there will be one in September this year also. And then Jenny, you asked, do we know the dates for the festival 2026? Do you have an answer to that?
Yeah, I was about to reply. We don't have an official date that I can share yet, but what I can tell you is early June 2026. And okay. Yeah, the official exact date would come quite quickly. We are already working on that.
Perfect, thank you. So please ask questions, because we just have a few moments for asking questions before we proceed. Perhaps if no one wants to, then I just have one question, because these 6 projects, lighthouse projects, were the first cohort, you could say, and then the second is on its way, right? Because during the first part of this session, we were talking about how do we make sure that our learnings and achievements are benefiting on a broader scale. So would there be any connections also from the more sort of systems level or systematic level regarding the connection between these 6 lighthouse projects? And I know projects they are sort of finalizing, but still organization involved in activities and the coming lighthouse projects.
Yeah, thank you for this question. And exactly, this is the objective of our collaboration with the ITCC, is to have like a real process for exchange and continuation and sharing between different generations of NEB projects, starting with you, the lighthouses, and then hopefully having this process running in the future waves of NEB projects. What I can say is that the other waves of the other projects that were launched in 2023 and 2024 and had a demonstration component, they are also somehow slightly more specialized in their focus. You had a very well-rounded sort of approach. I mean, the NEB approach is by default an integrated one, and is still the case for those projects, but they take like a more specific angle, let's say, urban regeneration or like food systems. So you have those more specific. So we will, with the ITCC, in a first step, try to see which project would benefit most to engage with each other, and then they will, with their work with the cultural and creative sector, help us shape sessions that are most conducive to really learning from one another. And then I think Anemi will at a later point after us introduce the NEB Junction, which is also, of course, part of this effort in really making sure that no knowledge is lost.
Thank you. And then I see there are no hands yet. But just one more point, because what you're referring to, you're referring to the EITCC KIC, which is a huge program for creative and cultural industries or organizations, a knowledge innovation community. Is that right? Or yeah, I can't remember. KIC, yeah. So perhaps just for clarification, but I see Juan Carlos, you have raised your hand.
Yeah, no, it's a minor contributions. So without this, let's say, overarching systemic approach to, keep all your effort and your projects after their conclusion within the NEF community and the NEF effort, the number of projects are going to increase, to grow, notably with the NEF facility. So we can see now in the current open call, which is running until for now 12th of November, and the number of topics and therefore the number of projects per topic is going to result in a really exponential growing portfolio, and this is going to happen year by year, because in 26 and 27 is going to be the same approach, because the NEP facility will have the same funding per year, 120 million per year. Therefore, the community, let's say the baseline community, which are going to be the projects, are going to be larger number, and this will lead to a different probably setting on how the cluster of projects are going to be connected and are going to, can really develop synergies and expanding more all the knowledge that is going to be created and all the activities that are going to be carried out. So this is something that we will discuss and see in the following months, and probably this is also a reflection for the cluster meeting. So how is this may look like, in view of this growing community, which you will be forever part of, So that's the one of the key elements. The initial example of this approach is going to be the next cluster meeting, and the 4 new projects, the 5, because it's also NEB Junction is the 5th one. All of them are going to participate in the next cluster meeting, but the number is small in this case. But obviously, if going forward, the clustering approach of projects is will need a different orientation, because of the number and because of the diversity of activities and topics. You were commissioned to test and evaluate the NEF values, and how they might be operationalized. The new projects are more specific, so are more focused on particular aspects, are more are segmenting different elements, of this whole concept. So all of them are complementary, but you will have, you have brought the most transversal perspective, the most holistic. So all these aspects in the end should be kept in the way forward, as the portfolio, after the family of projects will grow.
Thank you so much, Juan Carlos. There are a few comments in the chat, but I think it actually refers to what we're going to do now, and then I'll just, without further delay, because we're a bit delayed, but I turn to you, Enemy, for your next presentation on both the NEB Relay 2025, but also the NEB Junction, and also to prepare for our mural board session. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Åsa. It's a little bit of everything in 10 minutes. So let's see. It might also answer some of the questions and comments that were held here. Now, so apologies, I'll just run through this rather quickly so we have more time for the actual exercise. So as Juan Carlos mentioned, in November last year, the 6 NEB Lighthouse projects then started to not just meet regularly and present to each other, but also to address, well, what is this knowledge that we are generating as NEB lighthouses? Is it something physical? Is it a process? Is it, and how do we capture, what is that knowledge? How do we capture it? How do we share it with others, etc., etc. So I'm going to show you a few highlights of things that across NEB lighthouses has been done. And as you saw from the presentations before the break of the four of the NEB Lighthouse projects, you see also that everyone has done different things, different physical environment, different people involved, etc. But there's a few common elements. So I would like a few minutes now to highlight these common elements. Because afterwards in an exercise in the Miro board, we're going to ask you to identify among these common elements, like if you think that this has been the result then of 3 years of work within the 6 NEB Lighthouse projects. So if you think between now and then 2030, in the next 5 years, which of these are the most important ones to continue? The types of activities that should continue, that should be strengthened, that should still receive, that should definitely receive funding. And if so, well, what kinds of measures then or funding would be needed in order to support them? Because as Solène mentioned, so the first 6 NEB lighthouses were more, let's say, well-rounded, holistic, more comprehensive. The next, so the NEB destination, were more specific topical calls. Also in this year in the NEB facility, they are more specific, that there's no just like NEB lighthouses that are doing a little bit of everything. So we would very much like to hear from you among all of these knowledge bits that have come out of the NEB lighthouses. So which of those do you think are the most important ones to continue? And then how should that be funded? Is that seed funding? Is it travel funding? Is it more funding for pilots? Is it innovation like startups, which could be done by an EIT kick, you know, anything of these. So I'll just briefly present them and then we can go to the exercise. Now, from the Commission in the call, we got some specific outcomes that we needed to address. And I'll show 3 of them, not everything, because then we would need 2 hours to do this exercise. So 3 of them. A first one, the NEB lighthouses should have a clear expected transformational impact both on the built environment and how people live and interact in that environment. Now, among the 6 NEB lighthouses, so we made a first mapping of how we have addressed this, and then we see that we have several bigger groups, let's say, of responses. One is to really demonstrate on the ground these NEB values and principles, what that looks like locally, and to make this as kind of seeds of change. So starting to make a change locally and then getting more people involved and to start to spread. So cultivating this work and do really local, decentralized, visible transformations in a neighborhood. That's something that each NEB Lighthouse has done, regardless of the topic and the geography of the project. Another one is this, well, quadruple helix co-creation, so co-design, co-management among very different kinds of stakeholders, different types of people with different interests and needs. How do we do that? A lot of so building this ecosystem that can also last with outside of the project. Systemic innovation and policy integration. So not just doing the local physical thing and the process around it, but making sure it gets integrated in a longer term policy or institution or strategy. So both locally, but also regional, national, hopefully also European, to be able to become a kind of new normal. And then again, this inclusive co-design. How do we merge this bottom-up decision making and cooperation with more top-down structures, and how do they meet in the middle in order to make real change and long-lasting change? So this is like a first type of cluster of things that we've done. A second one, deliver by the end of the project, that also, and I have some windows here. I'm not going to read everything. You can do that afterwards by yourself. But so, like, really, again, tangible outcomes that lead to benefits in the long term. So typically, socioeconomic and cultural changes, really case-specific interventions, but also working with financial and partnership models, testing these feasibility studies, etc. So as you would do in a more technical project, but then also related to NEB, really transformations of the built environment, including also renovations of buildings and neighborhoods, using different types of tools, which also easily can be replicated, making sure we have these ripple effects, local ownership, very, very important, not just a project coming in and doing something, but getting really locals to engage and to take ownership of this so they can continue this afterwards. Public engagement and outreach, so not just doing things, but making sure that we share them in different ways with different types of target groups, thinking about not just doing a project and then someone else is going to scale and replicate, but testing this already during the project, how this is going to be done, how we can, what would we need in order to take over something from someone else? So what is it then that what kind of information can we give to others that hopefully can take this onwards? So also different types of tools, of course, and little cookbooks and replication guides and learning hubs and all of those types of things. And so integrating then these types of things also into education, integrating art, artists, cultural, creative sectors into the way of doing things, making sure that it's a long-lasting format. So not seeing this is a physical, this is a process, this is something else, but how then art and nature and education and everything can integrate, and ideally also help integrate this into education then, so other people just get this as a normal standard. And this comes again also in the last bit of types of outcomes we have. I have it somewhere. I'll start at the top right this time. So the curriculum research transformation. So it shouldn't just be a project by particularly engaged people, but make sure it gets integrated into training and students and dissemination and everything all the time. So showing this multifaceted transformation, it's not, oh, this is sustainability, this is inclusion, this is aesthetics, but how they intertwine. So this multifaceted transformation, cultural, artistic integration, co-creating genuine transdisciplinarity, not just doing things in parallel and then just putting them together in a package, but really learning from and working together, and finding ways to measure this. not one and the other and just have a whole bunch of KPIs, key performance indicators, but this co-benefits, these things in between. How do we measure that? Because if we can measure it, then it's easier for others also to convince their bosses, their real estate developers, etc., to take this on as well. Now, we noticed that that's a lot to unpack. So we started to map all of the events that our different projects are going to do in 2025, because all of us are ending in this year. So to be able to see, well, where is this presented, in what kind of format, who is engaged, etc. So we started to make a map of this. We know the map is incomplete. That will also be part of the exercise. So we hope that you will be able to, well, perhaps be present here, but also help us out with where else should NEB Lighthouses be sharing their knowledge. Are there any other events or opportunities where this could occur? And then a last one, as was also mentioned, so as part of the calls for last year, there was a NEB Hub for Results and Impacts. So a project, a kind of knowledge platform that is tasked with bringing all of this knowledge from the NEB Lighthouses, but also the first generation of NEB together as a base for new projects to come. So when we started this discussion with the NEB Lighthouses, we didn't know what that was going to be. In the meantime, then on the 1st of May, the NEB Junction was created, was launched, and it will be publicly launched after summer. I should clarify when I speak. So I'm the coordinator of the NEB Star project, so one of the NEB Lighthouses, but also of the NEB Junction. So I kind of have two hats when I present this here. So how we are working now on identifying and transferring knowledge towards this NEB Junction. And in this, as Solène mentioned, we are also working with the EIT Culture Creativity, because it's not just about the knowledge, but how this is then transformed into innovation, which is then something the EIT CC also will help with. So you can get the presentation afterwards. We have no time to go this in detail, but here you see a little bit more what this NEB Hub, what this NEB Junction is going to do. Different things. So a digital portal working with people, with stakeholders, together, of course, with the Joint Research Center, and then mapping and analyzing and sharing and structuring this knowledge that comes out of the NEB, all of the NEB community, stakeholders, so that it can inform the next generation. And this is then part of this exercise that we're going to do now. We will put a Miro link into the chat, and then you will see in this Miro link on the right-hand side, you will see this view. What we're going to do on the upper side here, on the three upper boards, the green, blue, and pink one, those are exactly the same slides as the one that I've showed you. What you can do is take a post-it note from the stack. You can choose the color you want, and then put it with the measures that you think are the most important, and then add, okay, so how should this be supported? So what is the most important, and how would you suggest it gets supported in the next 5 years? That's one. And then, so you don't need to do all of them, just the ones that you find the most important. And then second, if there then is any event, any additional event that you think is really, really important in 2025 or even in 2026, if you want, where this knowledge from the NEB Lighthouses should be shared, please also take a post-it note and add it so that we know we can follow up with you and we can get this integrated. So I'm going to stop to share this, and then I'm going to just briefly show the direct view of the Miro board, and I see that some of you are already in it. Let me check. Shifting between so many windows, because because I made a little example here. So here you have then, so on the board, this is the larger board, you have to have this gray area here. So I took a few examples from the first session before the break. For example, if we say that, yes, this very concrete demonstration of how NEB values and principles can be used locally, you know, we want to make NEB the new normal. That's very important. So then you take a post-it note and you put that here. And then, well, you could add how, not just what should be done, but how it should be supported. Similarly, like, yes, the systemic innovation is very important. So we want to integrate it into institutions, but without institutionalize it. Or so you get you get the idea, right? So you take one of those, you can get one of those, and then you just move it to wherever you want to go. And then you add text in it. Similar for this here. So I also made an example here. On this timeline now, I know that there is an event in Rimini in the beginning of November, which is called Ecomondo. It's mainly about anything to do with oceans and waters. Now, as a starting point, you would think, okay, but that, you know, that's a whole different mission. That is not New European Bauhaus. But we know that there's a lot of waterfront coastal communities that are connecting water, ocean, and NEB. So perhaps there are some opportunities. And in the NEB lighthouses, we have the Bauhaus of the Sea Sails, obviously. There's also cities and neighborhoods in the other NEB lighthouses that have been working a lot with waterfronts. So perhaps there is an opportunity here. So also there, add a post-it note and write on this. Make sure that you add, if you want to be contacted afterwards, make sure you add your name or an email address or so, or send us a message afterwards so that we know we know how to contact you. Good. Was this clear? Are there any questions or comments? Good. Also, how, with the time that has passed, how much time can we give people to fill this out?
I think it's important to give them at least 15, even 20 minutes so that we squeeze the reflection afterwards.
Yes, because I think I already also mentioned how could this contribution, you know, go into how could this fertilize the NEB initiative? So I think that part, the 10 minutes, could be removed from the program in a way. Good. Okay, so you have 15 minutes. And if there's any questions or comments, please let us know.
Meanwhile, take the opportunity to say goodbye. So thank you for inviting me and us to the session. I wish you all a very fruitful activity and discussions. Yeah, good luck. Thank you. Thank you, Ase and Amy. Bye.
Thank you both for attending.
Thank you for joining.
Likewise.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, we'll be in touch. Have a good
Bye-bye.
session.
Bye-bye.
Well, if people are, I know people are still like trying to finish their post-it notes. So are there any feedbacks? Like, did you mainly like what was on the board? Have you given suggestions? Is there something that you thought was just missing completely? So you added lots of notes on what else or what more we should have been doing. Is there something you find particularly important that should definitely be taken on either then by the NEB hub, so the junction, or the EIT Culture Creativity, or the Joint Research Center in some other way that should be brought forward so it can be funded and supported in the next years? Any feedback? that you want to share in a plenary? Federico?
Yeah, I was thinking also because of two calls that are now active. And this is something I wrote down, which is thinking forward. I think it really helps if we think of specific built infrastructure, such as which is a shared space, such as a library, a youth center, a social center, that can really be the beneficiary of this work that usually doesn't have a physical infrastructure as a destination, let's say. And for that, there are two interesting calls that and maybe this will be a separate conversation, that then we thought of having your inputs as lighthouses. One, is this the impact of common space on neighborhood communities. This is a NEB facility call that ends in November. And I think that's a very interesting case study of which, for example, the different lighthouse projects, we all have, I would assume, that we all have or may have these shared space of common spaces, be it public buildings, like buildings or urban spaces. For example, for us, and I already reached out to the people in the city of Lisbon, and they're very much interested in having this call as a way to kind of potentiate the work being done in the Mervilla Library. So this could be also something that could be super interesting, that we all kind of choose locations in our project that then we can present for a new call. So building up on this knowledge. And the other call is more specifically to food, which is also a concern. Also, the Bauhaus project that that Anime knows. I was an observant in their consortium meeting last week, which is this creating urban co-creation spaces for driving sustainable food system transformation. And I think that's also could be a super interesting topic. So in a nutshell, apart from which I found was really helpful in these different areas, for example, curriculum change and innovation, focusing on specific institutions, and also what I called forever institutions, which is these institutions that exist, such as museums or cities that can take over and then really be the beneficiaries of projects that then involve other institutions. Yeah, that's my contribution. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you. Amanda?
Yes, I wanted to share a point, but coming back to what Federico just said, I think, the first call sounds super interesting. I mean, we are a physical space and we plan to continue for another 7 years at least. So please think of us when you think
about
these
locations.
We are certainly trying to also fulfill that function in an area where such cultural spaces and intermediaries are scarce. Maybe I would say that we're also experiencing the closure of some museums, so it's not always the case that they are forever institutions, unfortunately. But the point I wanted to make on the EIT, we've also been discussing internally, because Erasmus is one of the founding members of the EIT Culture and Creativity. And one of the barriers for us in applying for this, I've mentioned it in this group before, is that there's often a kind of financial aspect to it, which does not fit with the way our education is financed. So the EIT needs to earn, let's say, from programs that are created under the calls, but yeah, we're struggling to pay our staff, so let alone share a contribution with EIT. So I think if there is something good that can come out of this, is also maybe to have some kind of lobby to rethink the way EIT considers and looks at education, so that it can be indeed, the calls are super interesting, but they're often just not possible for us to follow up on. Thank you.
Okay, so you're thinking big, like nebifying the entire structure. Yes. Okay, sure. And I think, well, because as I said, we are discussing with EIT Culture Creativity They will also be present in the cluster meeting in Rotterdam, in fact, so we can continue to work, perhaps even set up a meeting before that in order to discuss important items. In addition, then the EIT community NEB, so across different KICs, is a partner in the NEB hub, in the NEB junction. So EIT is quite well anchored in this initiative as well. So let's I'm sure we can use this as a space for dialogue to find good solutions that are really adjusted to the needs and priorities of NEB communities as well. Good. I think, well, so thank you for all of that input, and we will check, we will analyze, summarize, and send it back to you so you can continue to give feedback if you want to. With that, I would like to give the word back to Åsa. I'm sorry for taking more time, but everyone was really enthusiastic, and I do also hope that it inspires your next lab. I think, if nothing else, so I think, so thank you very much for organizing this, because it's a very good space for discussing these types of items, both within NEB Lighthouses and beyond, and connecting them to your broader community. So yes, also please.
Thank you so much, NME, for taking the half part of the session. So that was really, really great. And actually, it was the program was a bit delayed. We were a bit late. So, but I think you got enough time to contribute, because sometimes it's a bit difficult. What should I write? You need time to reflect. But I think you were excellent participants here. People were writing and contributing from the very start. And I think also it was easy to do due to the very good presentation. So I would also like to thank you for taking part. Just a very few words on what is coming up, because the Irresistible Cities Lab will continue. We will have a webinar once every month, and the next will be after the summer break. We have set it for the 28th of August. I still need to have it confirmed, but the point is to use that webinar as a sort of a Desire Pioneer webinar, we call it, when it's Desire partners to present what they are working with. Danish Design Center wants to present the transformation guide that they have been developed to the Desire project. But I also briefly spoke with you, Francesco, from the city of Turin, to perhaps you and together with the city of Riga to take it from sort of a municipality perspective. What have we learned and what are we doing right now, seen from your perspective and based on the learnings from Desire. But more information will come. I'm not sure it will be before the summer break. In Denmark, people are already sort of in their mind, at least, leaving, but definitely before well, of course, the beginning of August or something like this. But just make a save the date if you want to take part in this. So no further words from my side. Anyone who wants to share or to ask, then it's now, not never, because we'll have a chance again on the 28th. But if you have something to share in the last minutes, it's up to you. It was open. Okay. So therefore, I would just say thank you so much for all your contributions. I think what we have put on the Miro board, it's really interesting items that will feed into the further process. And looking forward to seeing you next time, whenever that will be. And have an excellent summer break to all of you.
Thank you very much.
Have a good summer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you very much. See you in August.
See you.